Credit Notre Dame for trying to schedule toward the college football playoff. Some of those matchups haven't turned out, i.e. Syracuse, i.e. Michigan, and USC and Stanford. But at the same time, Notre Dame is trying to get to a college football playoff, and they're scheduling these types of games, including going out to the desert to take on a pretty good Arizona State team. This should be an interesting one. 9 versus 10 elimination type game as we bring in Brian Leigh of Bleacher Report to break down the Sun Devils and the Irish. Brian, this is a matchup I really need to see this weekend because I think that I think it plays out pretty easily as an elimination game. Notre Dame could claim that they really haven't lost a game to this point, but that's another topic. So as we dive into this one, let's start with Everett Golson against Arizona State's defense. Golson, a much more mature quarterback, has had his turnover issues early in the season, but he seems to have righted some wrongs, and it's going to be a good matchup against a very athletic defense.
Right. I think you hit on it with the turnovers, where Arizona State's a defense that on a down-by-down basis, Notre Dame should be able to move the ball against. It's looked better the past few weeks, but it's done so against Kevin Hogan, who's imploding for Stanford. It's done so against Washington's backup quarterback. It's done so against Utah, which doesn't really have a passing game right now. When Arizona State's played a good quarterback this year, and that's a subjective term, but they've played Cody Kessler, they've played Brett Hundley, they've struggled a lot. So I think Notre Dame's going to be able to move the ball. Everett Golson, he makes 5 or 6 throws every week that just NFL scouts are salivating over. He's going to find his spots, but Arizona State is an opportunistic defense. If nothing else, they know how to play with that mindset. They fly to the ball. They get all over the place. And Golson, I mean, he let North Carolina hang around with his turnovers. He let Syracuse hang around with turnovers. And Arizona State's a better defense than that. And more to the point, he's going to be on the road this time.
Yeah, so running the football, Notre Dame wants to do that first and foremost with their backs and also with Golson. How do you see that side of the offense playing out?
I think they should be able to find some success. Terry and Folston's really sort of come on the past few weeks, the past 3 weeks, I guess, where they've been searching for what seems like forever for a new lead running back, and he looks like he's the guy. Notre Dame is a little bit bigger in the trenches than Arizona State is. They should be able to control the line of scrimmage. They should be able to get a semblance of a ground. I think they'll find success. Although, Arizona State, they keep surprising me. I thought Utah was going to score some points against them too. Todd Graham can coach. He's a questionable guy, but he really gets his team up, especially it seems in spots like this. So it's a toss-up, man. I've got faith in Notre Dame to run the ball, but I said the same thing last week.
Yeah, Brian, if you just run down the scores against for Arizona State against, again, not great offenses, but quality competition. 26-10 against Stanford, the 1916 overtime win in which they completely shut down Utah late in that game and in overtime, and they've done it over and over. You do mention the USC game that they won on a Hail Mary, and UCLA was the one, what they hoped to be aberration, where they just got obliterated. Notre Dame's defense, though, if we flip to the other side of the football, has been a bit of a concern. North Carolina scores a ton of points against them. I thought they played Jameis Winston and company very well, although they gave up the late touchdown drive in that one to lose the football game. And then I don't know if that one can be counted or not. Navy seems to jump up and always scare the big boys and put up, as it was, 336 yards against Notre Dame's defense. So Taylor Kelly, after being out for a number of weeks, provides that running threat in addition to making a lot of the NFL-type throws for Arizona State. So match up Arizona State throwing the football and running against Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, a lot depends on Taylor Kelly's health. He was out for most of the season with a foot injury. He's come back the past 2 weeks, and they've won, but he hasn't exactly looked like the Taylor Kelly of old. I think he's got to make the short throws first. I rewatched the Utah game, and he's not he hasn't been decisive in the short and intermediate the way he was last year. You're not gonna kill Notre Dame with big plays. You're gonna kill them on a down-to-town basis. That's sort of what Florida State did in that second half, which is probably the worst Notre Dame's defense has looked all year. I do think they have a matchup advantage with Jaelen Strong, who's 6'4". He's really tough to guard on the outside, and this might be where not having Kivari Russell finally comes back to bite Notre Dame, because Cole Luke and Cody Riggs have been good, but they're not as big as Kivari Russell. They're not as long as Kivari Russell, and that's what you need to guard Jaelen Strong. He's going to get himself into some good places. It's just a matter of if Taylor Kelly trusts his arm, trusts his foot enough to make those throws.
And Brian, as you well know, we can't undervalue the loss of Joe Schmidt, middle linebacker for Notre Dame, who was the leader on that defense, got everybody set in the right position, and that responsibility is going to have to be delegated elsewhere, and he's gone, and a guy that led this defense. Yeah,
it's a shame. He was a great story this year. He was a real fun guy to watch, the old walk-on, and he was playing lights out. He had to pick against Florida State. They replaced him with Nyles Morgan, who, you're changing from a former walk-on to a high 4-star recruit, and athletically you get that, and it's a good matchup for Nyles Morgan in that, when you're defending someone like DJ Foster out of the backfield, you need a more athletic linebacker. You need someone in coverage. You need someone who can get sideline to sideline. Nyles Morgan has the ability to play really well. He's also a true freshman playing in Sun Devil Stadium, playing in what people are calling an elimination game for the playoff. You have to wonder if maybe he'll be anxious, if Arizona State can take advantage of him jumping a route, of him being out of position. Mike Norvell, Arizona State's offensive coordinator, he's sort of from the Gus Malzahn, Chad Morris school of if I sense a matchup advantage, I'm going to take advantage of it. And I think they'll try to see if Nyles Morgan is jumpy, is anxious in his first start replacing Schmidt. And he could be the key to the game.
So, Brian, do you have a feel for this one? Notre Dame about a 2.5-point dog on the road at Arizona State.
Yeah, it's a tough game to feel. I'm already on the record, and I don't like it because it's such a coin flip. I do think Notre Dame, I think they're the better team. It's Arizona State, like you said earlier, they won a game on a Hail Mary. If they don't catch that Hail Mary against USC, if they have 2 losses, they're still the exact same team right now that they would be if they didn't catch a Hail Mary, but I don't think they'd be favored by 2.5 points. So I sort of see the value in Notre Dame. Their body of work has been better. They've looked more consistent on a down-to-down, play-to-play basis. They've really only lost 1 game, where in my mind Arizona State's lost 2. But I picked Utah last week also. Arizona State has made a habit of making me look dumb for picking against them.
So you're going to press your luck one more time, Brian.
Yeah, I'm gonna press Notre Dame, but I'm going to qualify that. If you want to fade me, just go ahead, and I won't be offended.
And if you want to take your logic to another step, Arizona State could have a second loss and be 15-18 in the polls and in the college football playoff rankings. Notre Dame could have the touchdown not called back against Florida State, and who knows, maybe they're 3 or 4 in the country right now and undefeated. We could play that game all over the country, but those are 2 very obvious situations that could have went either way for either team, and for Notre Dame it went against, and if they can win out, they should be able to overcome that, but they've got no margin of error at this point in the season. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. Brian Leigh, catch his stuff on Bleacher Report. He is all over college football. We pretty much throw any matchup at him, and he somehow pulls out the numbers and the statistics and runs down the personnel as well. So, Brian, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.